Hey guys, it's Rob. We're back. We're going to do another Hack the Box walkthrough. This time we're doing a machine called PermX. It is a Linux machine that is rated as easy. Once again, I didn't think it was that easy. So, regardless, and without further ado, you can see I am connected to Hack the Box's VPN. I do have the PermX machine spun up, and I have its IP address right here. So, first thing we did was we ran an Mmap scan, service version detection T4 aggressive on all ports, and a few things came back, 22 and 80. So naturally, the first thing we did was we came over and we pasted the IP address in and we hit enter. And it came back with permx.hackthebox is can't find the site. So first and foremost, that means we need to go and we need to modify the etc host file. So we'll do that now. Sudo nano etc hosts. And we'll drop down here and we'll paste in the IP address. And then hit tab, and then it's permx dot hack the box was the IP, was the host name. So we're going to hit Control O to save, Control X to exit, close this window, and we'll try and reload. And there we go. So we have the e-learning site that's popped up. It looks like some kind of education site. I poked around in here. There wasn't really anything worthwhile. I did do some go busting, so we'll do that real quick. And you can see we're running GoBuster on the permx.hackthebox website using the derby common.txt. We'll hit enter. There's a few things that came back, but ultimately kind of a dead end. As you can see, there's a few directories that popped up, 301 redirects. I went to all of them. There's some directory listings. Like if you go to the image one, I think if we open the link, it'll take us to a directory listable. But there's really nothing in here. And I poked around in here and didn't really see anything. So the next thing that I usually do with these websites like this is if there's no directories that are interesting that I can get anything from, what I'll try and do is look for a subdomain. So I actually have a command here. I use Fuff for that. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run it and see the results. And then you're going to want to put a filter on because you'll see in a minute why I say that. So if I paste the clipboard here, get rid of that for a second. You can see I'm doing Fuff with the subdomain top 1 million, and it's actually 110,000.txt. We're running against the URL, and then the host, you can see we have the word fuzz in front of the permx.hackthebox, so it's going to replace that with all the potential subdomains and see what happens. So if you just hit enter, you'll see you'll get all of this, right? So what we want to see are the ones that are different. So you could take any one of these things. I'm going to take words. So I'm going to hit Control C and I'm going to do this same thing. But what I'm going to do, instead of just running it like that, I'm going to put a filter on this. And we're going to filter on word, right? And we're going to filter the value 18 because you can see most of these came back with an 18 in the line. So when we do that and hit enter, you can see right off the bat we have www, and then we have capital www, and then we have LMS, which typically means Learning Management System. So what we're going to do is, while this is running, we're going to go back to the etc host file because now we want to add another host name. And I messed up my password. Okay, so now we have hack the box, perm.hackthebox here. We want to add one more. So we're going to add lms.permx.hackthebox. Okay, we're going to hit Control O. to save, Control X to exit, and we can close this terminal window. So this is still running, but really that's all that's going to come back. Okay. So now what we can do is we can do lms.permx.hackthebox. And let's see what comes up. Excuse me. So now this system came up. It's something called Chameleon. I tried looking for default credentials. There was something about admin and DigitalOcean. I tried it, didn't work. I tried admin password. I tried root. I tried everything. None of the passwords worked. So what I did was I searched for a few vulnerabilities. And because I didn't really know what version of Chameleon it was. So first I tried this CVE 2023 34960. That did not work. It was not vulnerable to that. The next one that I came across was this 2023 4220. So if you look, it's right here. And essentially what this is it basically does an unauthenticated upload and remote code execution. So as I did my research here, a lot of these were vulnerabilities were authenticated. And because I don't have any credentials, I couldn't use any of them. This is the only one that I found that worked that was unauthenticated, meaning you don't need credentials for it to work. And essentially what you got to do is you run the script against the website, and you can do a couple of commands here. Scan, which will tell you if it's vulnerable to the vulnerability. You can do a web shell, or you can do a reverse shell. I ended up doing the reverse shell. So what you need to do is git clone this library. So that I did that already. So if I come in here and I open a terminal here, if I do an ls, you can see I git clone the entire library, and I did a virtual Python environment because it's required. Because if you look at cat requirements, one of the requirements is request. There's a few here that you need to do in a Python virtual environment. So if you don't know how to do that, again, it's simple. You just do Python 3 with TAC-M for module, the venv module, and then you can name it whatever you want, but typically or traditionally it's named .venv. You hit enter, and then you would just run your commands like so. So to do the requirements, then what you would do is you would use your virtual environment like that. And what I'm going to do is actually that's running the command. What we want to do first is we want to do, instead of Python 3, we do /pip install requirements. That will install all the required Python libraries that are needed for this to run. And then lastly, what we would do is we would actually run the Python script. Okay, so the one that you're actually going to run is the main. Okay, so what we can do first to show you is we can run the scan first. So if we do scan, target is likely vulnerable. Go ahead. So next, because it's likely vulnerable, we can just change this to reverse shell. And before I hit enter, I'm going to start a listener, which will be netcat. We'll do it on 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll come back over here. So now we just changed from TAC-A scan to TAC-A reverse shell. And we're running it against the lms.permx.hackthebox URL. So if we hit enter, it's going to ask some questions. Enter the name of the web shell. We're just going to hit enter for the default, which is going to be webshell.php. Enter the name of the reverse shell. It's just going to be revshell.shell. Enter the host the target server will connect to when revshell is run. That is your IP address. For me, that is 10.10.14.151. and we're going to hit enter. Enter the port. If you remember, we started our listener on 1, 2, 3, 4. We hit enter. Be sure that you're listening on the port that you defined, and it says you should already have a reverse connection by now. So if we go back to our listener, you can see we do, in fact, have a connection. So if we do who am I, we're dub data. Dub data, which is not good, because if we go to cd home and we do ls, there is a user called mtz. We'd go cd mtz, and we get permission denied. So there was a couple of things that we needed to do here. I did all of the typical Linux investigation. I did history. I did sudo-l. So if I do sudo-l, you get this terminal. There's nothing you can do with that right now. I tried to find files with the suid set. There was nothing. Okay. So ultimately what I ended up doing was running linps. So we're gonna go to the temp directory, because I'm pretty sure I can write there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open a terminal, and we're going to go cd tools, cd linps. And you guys have seen me do this numerous times. So Python 3 module http on 8000. Then we're going to go back and we're going to do a wget http 10.10.14.151 port of 8000 linps.shell. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do chmod linps.shell. Oops. Okay, so I actually have another copy of linps here because I've already done this. So as long as we do ls ail, you can see it's executable up here, the linps.shell. So we're just going to go with that. So I'm going to do linps.shell, which is going to run it. And this is going to take a few seconds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video, and I'll be back when linps is done. All right, we're back. That took a little bit, but linps is done running. And I'll tell you right now, there was not a lot that could be found, but I mean, I went through this probably 6 times before I actually saw this, and I found this password right here. This is way down at the bottom. I'm just going to copy that, actually. Copy selection, and I'll paste it so that I don't have to come back and get that again. But if you look, there was nothing else that popped up. I looked at listening. There's a database that's running on 3306, but I could not access it, even though it's running on a local port and it's on the loopback adapter. I couldn't find anything. The only other thing that got called out was there's a shell script in the opt folder. So I took note of that, but this password was really what I needed. So what I ended up doing was to try and log in as the user. I forget what the user's name was. Hold on. I think it's MTZ, right? If I'm not mistaken. Let me just make sure. So cd home ls. Yeah, it's MTZ. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that password, and then I'm going to do a switch user. Let me just make sure I got it copied here. Copy. And then we're going to do switch user MTZ. And then we're going to paste that password. Hit enter. And it looks like nothing happened. But if you type who am I, oh, or even who am I, if I can type, it's late guys, I'm sorry, who am I? MTZ, so we can do something like bin bash tac I, and now we can get into the home cd mtz, and if we do an ls, there's the user.txt. I'm not going to show the flag, I have access to it. So then I started to do the same Linux commands, history, and then I did sudo -l and struck kind of pay dirt, but this took a while to figure out. So if I hit sudo tac l, it says that user mtz may run the following command on PermX, all with no password, which is in the op folder. It's that acl.sh shell script I mentioned was called out in WinPs as well. So if we go to that folder, cd opt, and we cat the acl.shell script, what it looks like it's doing is it takes 3 arguments. 1 is the user, 2 is the permissions, and 3 is the target. It looks like you can feed it those 3 arguments, and the file needs, this is the part that was really difficult to understand. Whatever file that you run this on has to be in your home directory, right? So here it says if the target is not in home mtz, then access is denied, right? So basically we can run this with sudo, but we have to run it on a file that is in mtz. Now there's a way around that in a way, okay? And we'll get to that shortly. But basically what this script is it's basically setting the FACL or the ACL for the file that you run it on to whatever permissions you want. And the permissions would be in the form of RWX, so read, write, execute, right? So ultimately what I decided to do after, and don't get me wrong, this took forever because it took a while to figure out how this worked. I decided that the easiest way for me to escalate my privileges was to see if I could basically add a user to the etc password file. Okay, so typically passwords are not in the etc password file, they're in the shadow file, but nothing prevents them from not being in the password file, right? So you could do an echo statement to the password file with a username and password, and theoretically be able to switch user to that user. And because this script is running as root, theoretically you should be able to add yourself as a root user. So what took forever to figure out was obviously the etc password file is in the etc directory. It is not in the home directory. But you can do something like link symbolic, right? And actually we want to do this in the home directory. So we're going to go back to our home directory, right? So now we're going to go pwd. We are in the home directory. So as you can see, any file that we act on needs to be in the home directory. So now we can do link symbolic etc passwd, right? And if we do an ls or lsail, we can now see we have the password, etc password. So now what we can do is we can run that script. And the way we do that is I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste. And we do sudo opt acl.sh on user mtz. We want to make the etc password, well, it's actually a link to the etc password, but we want to make the password file read, write, and executable. The next thing we want to do is we want to create a password for ourselves. So I'm just going to do open SSL password, and we're going to use MD5, which is -1, and I'm just going to do Rob. So there's the password. So now what we can do is we can echo a line into the Etsy password file. Copy. Because if we look at the permissions, so if we do an ls ail Etsy passwd, we should be able to add a link to that. So, there must be a script that runs on here. My password link is gone, so I'm going to have to do this fairly quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to do this pretty quickly and then I'll explain it. So if for those of you who haven't done these machines, they have cleanup scripts that run. So you can see I had this link here and now the link is gone, which means there's some kind of cleanup script that's running on a regular basis. So I'm going to have to do this fairly quick. So I already have the password that I need. I already have all of that done. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to copy these commands and I'm going to paste them in rapid fashion. And I'll explain each of them afterwards. So we're going to paste. Now we have the link. Now we're going to set the permissions. Copy. Paste clipboard. Okay, now we're going to echo a line, which adds me to the Etsy password file. Paste clipboard. Okay, and now we're going to do switch user Rob, password Rob. And if I do bin bash I, you can see we're root. So now I can explain these lines to you because the script, if it runs now, it doesn't matter. I already have root access. So what we did was we created a symbolic link to the Etsy password file in our home directory called password, right? You can see it up here actually, okay? Then what we did was we ran the ACL script that we can run with no password using sudo acl.sh. And the arguments, if you remember, it required the user, the permissions, and then the file we want to alter. So by altering this, because it's a symbolic link, it actually alters the original file, okay? So now, theoretically, when I did this, I had read, write, and execute privileges on the Etsy password file. So all I did was I created myself a password, hash, MD5, and then I echoed a line that would come, should look very familiar to you, right? It's a line that would be in the Etsy password file. It's got the username, the password, the user ID and group. 0 is root, right? The group is Rob, home directory is root, and the shell is bin bash. All I did was echo that to the Etsy password file. Then what I did was I switched user to Rob, which is the user I just added, by using the password Rob, which I obviously created up here. Okay, this hash, all this is a hash for Rob, right? And that allowed me to have root access to the machine. So now we can do cd root, and we can do cat root.txt. And I will make sure to blur that flag out. But you can see we now have the root flag. So again, this machine was not easy. First and foremost, I had to figure out there was a subdomain on the box of LMS. Then we had to figure out this Camelio and figure out an unauthenticated exploit that we could use. We were able to use the exploit that we found on GitHub. And then once we got access, we found out we were www data, which really didn't have much access. We ran linps. We found a password. We switched users to MTZ using that password. We then found that there was a file that was able to be run by MTZ with sudo privileges and no password, which is this acl.shell. We figured out what that file was doing. We made a symbolic link to the Etsy password file. We changed the permissions on it by running the script. We then echoed a new line into the file, which created a new user. with root privileges. We switched user to that new user with root privileges, and that enabled us to get the root flag. So easy peasy, right? Not really, but ultimately this was a pretty fun machine. I enjoyed it. And it was one that challenged me a little bit on the PermX side. So I hope this video helped you. I hope you found something useful or maybe learned something. All of the links will be in the description below. Please feel free to drop a comment. I'll be happy to engage with you. And I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.